To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. How did you become who you are today? With over 7 billion people on the earth and no two think, believe, or act the exact same, everyone has a unique perspective of how they view the world and those around them. We each have a paradigm which creates our own realities. A paradigm is the mindset or lens through which we see the world. This is why people can experience the same events, and their perspective of how they see the events and the consequences thereof can be completely different. Alan Watts tells the story of the Chinese farmer. Once upon a time there was a Chinese farmer who had a horse run away. That evening the neighbors came around and said, "That's too bad." And then the farmer said, "Maybe." The next day the horse came back with 7 wild horses. The neighbors again came around and said, "Well, that's great, isn't it?" And he said, "Maybe." The next day his son, trying to tame one of the wild horses, was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors came around that evening and said, "Well, that's too bad, isn't it?" And the farmer said, "Maybe." The next day the conscription officers came around looking for people to join the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. That evening the neighbors came around and said, "Well, that's wonderful, isn't it?" And the farmer said, "Maybe." This metaphor illustrates that anything we experience and its meaning is in the eye of the beholder. Seemingly good events can be bad to others and vice versa. One man's trash is another man's treasure, one man's heaven, another man's hell. Our realities are completely created out of our perspectives and the way we interpret the world around us. In a series of experiments performed by Johns Hopkins University, researchers also concluded that people cannot see the world objectively, only subjectively. The experimenters simply took a series of round, laser-cut coins and tilted them away from the people examining them. Even though the subjects knew the objects were perfectly round, they couldn't help but see them in a distorted way as ovals. This was because of the way the light from the coins hit their eyes, and their brain displaying a seemingly different shape. Lead author Jorge Morales, also of Johns Hopkins, said, "Our subjective approach to the world stays with us. Even when we try to perceive the world the way it really is, we can't completely discard our perspective. Even the way we see through our eyes is just light being transferred through the eyes and then through the brain. As light passes throughout our eyes, it is actually reversed and turned upside down, and is only displayed right side up when ran through the occipital lobe of the brain." So how did we create our own unique paradigms and perspectives? The lens through which we see the world is a culmination of all we have heard, learned, and experienced in our lives. Starting at birth, we became a sponge, as everything we encountered through our senses began to be absorbed by our brains and subconscious minds. One of the biggest influences on us is our parents or the guardians who raised us. The importance of what we were subjected to as children by our parents cannot be overstated. As Carl Jung taught, we develop a God image of our parents. We come to respect and revere our parents throughout our maturation process, and the thoughts and beliefs that are passed down from them are often the foundations for our thoughts and beliefs. Combined what is passed down from our parents with the culture and the society surrounding us, and those alone create the vast majority of our thoughts, values, and beliefs. We conform to the things we are subjected to, especially when it comes from someone we seek approval from, like our teachers, friends, and family. One example of this that is simple to track is religion. The Pew Research Center found that approximately 71% of Americans are Christians. They also found in studies that of those raised by 2 Protestant parents, 84% were still Christian and 79% were still Protestant after growing up. Of those raised by 2 Catholic parents, 79% were still Christian and 62% were still Catholic. So if we contrast America being 71% Christian with India that is 80% Hindu, what are the odds of being Christian or Hindu in India versus in America? Most Americans would have a tough time telling you anything about Hinduism because they haven't been around it. It is much less likely to be Hindu in America if there isn't anyone to expose you to it. But in India, where your family has been Hindu for generations, along with everyone else around you, it would be much easier to align yourself with it. How much of you is you and not just ideals that you have adopted from being subjected to them? If I asked you to sum up who you are, most people would reply with a series of labels. I am a wife, I am a Democrat, I am a mother, I am a Muslim, I am an engineer, etc. While labels do serve as a type of shorthand to quickly and efficiently explain some of who we are, Labels can also be dangerous. If we self-identify with a particular label and others around us help reinforce that label, we place ourselves in a box, and we can easily start to change our behaviors to match the mold of that label. What if your family is a long line of lawyers, but you find while in law school you aren't passionate about law? What if one of your core identities is being a spouse, but you end up getting a divorce? What if a person is a Democrat who agrees with gay marriage and is against war, but also disagrees with abortion and gun control? Can he not be against abortion and gun control because of the label of Democrat? While labeling yourself and others can be helpful in establishing identity, if we rely mostly on external factors, we can be setting ourselves up for failure. The car you drive, your employer, your credit score, your house, your spouse, your children, and how many social media followers you have may all be important to you, but we need to balance the external with the internal. When we begin to label and categorize ourselves and those around us, we create groups and comparisons with those that align or oppose our views and circumstances. We naturally gravitate towards people similar to us. The person who drives the same car as you, has a family like yours, and has similar hobbies and interests will be more appealing than someone who doesn't. Henry Tajfel created the social identity theory. In it, he proposed that people's social identity would be largely based on the groups they were in. Tajfel thought people naturally created an us versus them mentality through putting everyone into social groups. These groups are meant to give us pride and self-esteem, as well as a sense of belonging. Tajfel found people would exaggerate the similarities of the people in their groups, while also exaggerating the differences of the people outside their groups, even to the point of discrimination. He also found this was a natural and vital part of a person's identity. Our cultures and the society around us, our families and friends, as well as the groups we belong to, the labels we place upon ourselves and that are placed upon us, and ultimately our perspectives, all work together to create our identities and who we think we are. But to that I ask, who really are you? How much of you is actually you, and how much of you has conformed to the things around you? We have all undoubtedly conformed in some area of our lives, and it is up to us to look deep within with honesty and ask why we act, think, and believe the way we do. Where did my values come from, and is this something I truly value, or is it something I merely adopted from someone else? This is far more easier said than done. One thing to watch out for is wishful thinking. If we want something to be true or to be in line with who we are, it becomes very easy to overlook the real truth or to justify our actions. It is difficult to admit that we might have spent a part of our lives living as something we really aren't, but it is far better to come to terms with it now and move forward in truth rather than living a lie. We are all lies waiting for the day when we will break free from our cocoon and become the beautiful truth we have waited for. As always, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a like and sub to the channel. Join the rebellion and rise up in betrayal against the conformists.